So as I mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, so the full employment actually is not the same as zero unemployment. So why? To explain this, why it has to be non-zero unemployment rate, so we first has to look at a different type of the unemployment. So generally speaking, we have four different categories of the unemployment: seasonal, frictional, structural, and cyclical unemployment. So in the following slides, we will explain what are they. So for the seasonal unemployment, it actually is unemployment due to seasonal changes in employment or labor supply. And at the end of each season, thousands of workers must go searching for a new job, experience seasonal unemployment in the process. So actually, Erie is very easily be affected by the seasonal unemployment because our distinguished winter and the summer. So during the summer, we have a lot of tourists coming, such as our water park very close to the Lake Erie. So if you are aware looking for the summer job and you know they have a lot of openings positions and you can apply for. And so how about at the end of the September? Are they still hiring those people? The answer is no. So those people will leave the job. So if they left the job because there is nobody gonna go to the water park if the weather gets so cold, so people leave job if they are still actively seeking job, so they're actually going to contribute to the unemployment rate. So you can see people getting job, losing job is really because the weather. And also another example, during our festival, like when we have homecoming, and we have all kinds of and Crawford County Fair, Country Fair, and so when we have those fairs event, and we need people to work and to supply food, drinks, or all kind of services, and people got hired because this kind of special event, once the event ended, and then they will lose the job. And so if they're also still actively seeking for a job, and so they are considered as part of the unemployed employee of labor force. So this kind of unemployment is considered as seasonal. So the unemployment due to seasonal changes. So the key word here is seasonal changes. So after we discuss the seasonal unemployment, next we're going to look at the second type of the unemployment, which is called the frictional unemployment. So frictional unemployment is the brief periods of the unemployment experienced by people moving between jobs or into the labor market. So the frictional unemployment is really different from seasonal because it's not caused by the seasonal event or the seasons, etc. So actually, for the frictional unemployment, is the people who are kind of actively searching for a job but they haven't found yet. So when we discuss the frictional unemployment, then we have to identify the characteristic of this kind of unemployment. So first of all, in the job market, there actually has enough jobs. So there is adequate demand for labor. And the second, so for people who contribute to for the frictional unemployment, they actually have the qualified skill for the jobs. And so why they don't take the job? So many reasons. So for instance, if you graduate right after your graduation and you start to find a job, and you may not be able to find a job within a week. So you are actively seeking job, but you just need a little bit of time. Or some candidate, they are just waiting for better offers, so they may be able to get hired within months, and then they are waiting for their second offer, which may notify them in the second month. So she might want to wait for 2 months instead of 1 month. So those kind of behavior will contribute to the frictional employment. So the two examples also indicate in order to identify it is a frictional employment, you have to know the job search period is actually relatively short. So that's why I want to emphasize. So after you graduate, and you actually may contribute to the frictional unemployment because you are just graduate and you're transition from a student to a potential employee, and so you need to find a job. So between student time to become official employee, you actually contribute to the frictional unemployment. And actually, most economists agree that the frictional unemployment is reasonable for an unemployment rate of 2 or 3%. So this is considered as a frictional unemployment please keep in mind the three characteristics of the frictional unemployment. Adequate demand for frictionally employed, so they have skills required for existing jobs, and the job search period is relatively short. So those are three characteristics to characterize the frictional employment. And next is our structural unemployment. So the unemployment caused by a mismatch between the skills or location of job seekers and the requirements or location of available jobs. So when we're discussing the structural unemployment, it may cause by a couple of reasons, but it has to be belong to the mismatch. So for instance, if you find a new job and then you realize, wait a second, the job requirement is actually not needed your interest and or even your skills, and you feel, oh, that's not the place for me to work for, and you get not happy about the position, and then you quit your job. So you may not instantly find your second job, so you are actively seeking job on the market. So between quitting the job to finding the next new job, and you actually contribute to the structural unemployment. So this is one example. So you have higher skill than the job required. So you are not happy what the company require you. And the second scenario can be just like GE. So the economy change, the company structure change, and they realize they don't need a certain kind of worker, or they may go to another location, Texas, to find new workers. So they will ask you if you move to Texas. They will keep hiring you if you don't want to move to Texas, and they have to say sorry to you. So either you don't have enough skill to meet their requirement, or they want to relocate but you don't want to move, and then you lose your job. And so those situations you contribute to the structural unemployment. So the structural unemployment. And so to summarize, so the periods for the structural unemployment, so the periods between jobs may be lengthened due to lack of skills that employer require. So some of students actually decide to come back to school to learning more skills because they realize that after they got fired because they cannot keep pace with the company's development, they went back to school and try to get more skills, and so that they can find a better job. So you can see the reason why they come back. One of the reasons is if it's caused by the structural change, usually it takes a really long time to find the next possible jobs. And so for the structural unemployment violates the second condition for frictional unemployment, so that the unemployed can perform the available jobs. So that's the main difference between the frictional and the structural unemployment, because they are kind of a little bit confusing. So make sure you understand what's the main difference. So the main difference is for the structural unemployment, the individual actually will not have adequate skill for the job they currently offer on the market. So that's very, very important. And our last type is called the cyclical unemployment. So for the cyclical unemployment, it's an unemployment attributable to the lack of job vacancies, that is, to an inadequate level of aggregate demand. And so this actually will occur when there are simply not enough jobs to go around. And so when this is going to happen, usually this will happen during the recession. So the Great Recession, the Great Depression, is the most striking example of this cyclical unemployment. So this happened literally just because the market is not good. So they cannot offer enough job. So that caused the problems. So these are the four different unemployment. So for my perspective, I feel frictional and structural are kind of very confusing. So make sure you understand what's the main difference between these two different kind of unemployment, frictional and structural. As I said, frictional is the market is fine, the individual is fine, but just they need a little bit of time to find a better match. And for the structural unemployment, that's going to be a problem. So on the job market, they have enough job, they need labor. However, for the labor, they don't have enough skill to meet in the job requirement. So that's called the structural unemployment. And another two, seasonal, it's pretty easy to understand because we're in an area which is pretty much rely on different seasons, and we hire different employees. And if season is passed, those people become unemployed, and they actually contribute to the seasonal employment. But the worst one is called the cyclical unemployment. So actually, this one is literally caused by the weak economy. So if the economy is not growing well, and they all contribute to the cyclical unemployment, so people cannot find job. So after we discuss these 4 different types of unemployment, so in our next video, we're actually going to discuss what exactly mean for employment.